connect with, because they are terribly afraid of being alone, and they are terribly afraid of being lonely. Yet, long-time wisdom is that we need to be okay with ourselves, and okay with being alone, and okay in relationship with ourselves before we can be in relationship with anyone else. When we are afraid, we will grab for anything. Toxic relationships, pleasing others so that we're liked, overworking, addictions, will grab for anything to stave away the fear. And yet when we are clear and grounded, we know we are surrounded by God's grace no matter what is happening around us. And we can trust that where we are right now is exactly where we are supposed to be. Henri Nouwen, who's one of the people that we've learned about in the Admiration series, said that without solitude, it's virtually impossible to lead a spiritual life. Why? Because solitude keeps us in integrity with ourselves. Solitude frees us from the expectations of others and what they think of us and what they think we should do. Solitude frees us from being nice. I know there's a big thing in the Dakotas and in Minnesota, and I think it spreads a little south into Iowa about being nice. You should know that John Wesley did an entire sermon one time on be not nice. It comes from the word to be ignorant. So this whole thing about being nice, solitude frees us from that. And from saying yes when we really should say no. Faithful people have good boundaries. Solitude frees us from our rush to effectiveness and efficiency and reminds us that we are simply called to be God's children. Solitude helps us quiet the voices of everyone else so we can hear God, and to clear off our lenses so we can see the goodness of God in our lives around us, and to see where God is already leading us. Solitude allows us to be honest and develop compassion for ourselves and our own limitations, because that then frees us to have compassion for others and their limitations. In solitude, we waste time. We waste time hanging out with God and being in relationship with God. It's not about getting something done, even like reading a book or achieving some goal. It's really like sitting on that porch swing with your grandmother on a lazy summer afternoon, sipping, in my grandmother's case, it would be Pepsi floats, and appreciating the sounds of the summer around you. Or laying out in the grass in the summer with your partner. You know, those August nights when you watch the meteor showers in the Pleiades. Spending time that way has such a different feel than the ways we usually are with each other. Think about it. Have you ever been with someone who was on their phone the whole time you were with them? That is not spending time together. Yet if we are honest with ourselves, that is often how we spend time with God and with each other, distracted somewhere else. Programs and activities cannot substitute for the experience of God or for falling in love with God either. The wonderful educator and spiritual leader Parker Palmer reminds us that the great spiritual gift that comes as one takes the inward journey is to know for certain that who I am does not depend on what I do. Who I am does not depend at all on what I do, and that is especially important in different seasons of our life when we are not able to be as active, as productive, as efficient as society and other expectations would have us be. We do not earn our status as God's beloved. It just is so. And you know that's true in our best human relationships. We do not earn being loved. We simply are loved. Think about the dog. Okay? You don't earn a dog's love. You can have a terrible day. And that dog is going to think you are the greatest person that ever walked in the door. Right? Now, denominations, bless their adorable hearts, are focused on attendance and membership and money. We affectionately call that nickels and noses. Okay? Denominations are into nickels and noses because that is the culture's measure of success. But it is not a measure of spiritual success. Spiritual success has to do with the depth of our relationships with God. And that changes the life of the church. It changes the life of the church's members. You know that wonderful pastor Eugene Peterson? He's the one who put together the Message. Okay, that wonderful paraphrase of the Bible. He reminds us that in a church where the people are focused on spirituality and soul care, there's a cultivated awareness, he says, that God has already seized the initiative. The people pray and build relationships, and the questions they ask each other are, what has God been doing here? And what has God already set in motion that we can get in on? What has God been doing here? See, God's already doing something with this congregation. It's not going to be anything any new pastor brings. The pastor does not bring God's mission. It's already here. The problem is we got to catch up. We got to find out what it is. We got to find out why God called this ornery, crazy, wonderful, cantankerous, delightful, and loving group of people together. This particular group. God's already at work. We just got to catch up. And that's what the spiritual disciplines help us do, is catch up with where God is leading us. So a good, solid, spiritually based church community is constantly locating itself and its life in relationship to God. They live to tell the story of faith, knowing that they stand both within and against what Eugene Peterson calls the cultural religion and the drive to consume, to accumulate, and to achieve in our society. To stand within that and against it in critique, in a good way. And he says that all takes a surrender to God's purposes for the congregation. And we need to ask every day, Lord, here I am. What do you have to say to me today? Solitude is the first step in becoming grounded in grace and not grounded in the culture. South African pastor Trevor Hudson put it this way. He said, carving out space in our activity-filled lives to be alone with God is a vital ingredient of the Christ-following life. In spite of enormous pressures and ministry demands, Nan read about this morning. The story of is punctuated with such spaces. Remember how he retreated for 40 days into the desert silence at the beginning of his ministry, spending a night alone before he selected his 12 companions, withdrawing before sunrise to a solitary place following an exhausting day of ministry, seeking the solitude of the Garden of Gethsemane before Calvary. These moments of silence and solitude were the secret of his life, because in them Jesus was able to nurture his intimate relationship with Abba, with the one he called Father. He was able to replenish his resources for compassionate ministry. And so many people in our church are involved in compassionate ministry, but how do we recharge? He was able to wrestle with the dark, tempting voice that was intent on enticing him into illusion and into power and achievement. And he was able to renew his body in restful relaxation. Trevor Hudson says, if Jesus needed these spaces, surely our own need is even greater. So how do we do this? Well, there's sets of solitude instructions. They're going to be on the website. Some of them are printed out. Every week, there's going to be whatever I'm preaching on. There will be 4 sets of ways to practice that particular discipline. So you can build yourself a binder or a file. And then you add other stuff you find. I'm not the be-all and end-all of the universe. You've got stuff of your own. Make your own folder and binder. But some of the things that are important with solitude is that we need to take time apart with God, just like we do with our human relationships. If we never spend time with the people we love, things fall apart. We can take advantages of little islands of solitude during the day. Not all of us have a lot of time, especially if we're dealing with kids or we're dealing with our parents. All the emerging things that need attention. But there are little islands of solitude during the day. Think about those moments before anyone else is up in your house. Or the cup of tea or coffee that you have before beginning the day's work. It can be just a moment when you notice and truly see a beautiful tree with the flowers. Remember that wonderful book, The Color Purple, and Shug tells Seeley. God puts that color purple in the flowers all around us so that we notice God saying, here I am. That's why the book was called The Color Purple. Each of those moments is an opportunity to reorient our focus, to clear our lenses, to hear better, so that we're hearing and seeing God and not all the stuff around us. And each of those moments lets us grow in gratitude. Gratitude is so fundamental. Now, we can also have solitude places. One of the many names for God in the Hebrew Scriptures is Hamakom, which means the place. Because God is the abiding place in which we can be our truest self, where we can simply be children of God and not owned by anyone or anything else. Not your mortgage, not your job, not the bills, not nothing. Just being God's king. So for one person, that place might be a favorite rocking chair. You just sit and you know for a couple minutes you can just let it all go. For another, it might be the patio or the workbench in the garage. I got a friend who has a sunroom and a special chair. She sits there. And if you don't have room for a physical space, there's a way to let your loved ones know that you're in solitude time that a friend of mine started doing. And what she did was, she would sit at her desk or in a chair and she'd put a baseball cap on. Because you tell kids give me a few minutes or give me 5 minutes and it lasts about 30 seconds, right? But her kids know that if she's got her baseball cap on, she is not to be interrupted short of the house burning down. Okay? Sometimes she'll call it her thinking cap, but it's really her solitude time. And when the cap is off, she's available. But when that cap is on, she's not available. So we can create space that way. We can also practice solitude by becoming comfortable with questions when we don't have the answers. You know, one of the things my dad talks about is he said when he first started practicing law, you know, when you send a pleading to the other side, you're sending documents, you're sending requests for admissions and all the other things, and requests for evidence. It would be several days before it would come back because of the mail and all that. Now with email, everybody wants instant response. It's even worse with text messages. Sometimes we need to just sit with the questions. And we're not comfortable with the answers yet. We don't know the answers. So instead of rushing to fill that space with words and busyness, part of the art of solitude is learning to listen, learning to wait, and to be attentive until the moment of grace and inspiration happens. And it always does. But sometimes we have to give it some space to show up. The world needs people who are aware of the grace around them, people who are grateful to be alive in the presence of God, and people who trust that God really, really, really is doing a new thing among us already, and know we just have to catch up. The world around us is watching. It's waiting. And if we are wanting the world to be a more gracious place where people are attentive to God, we must be, as Gandhi said, the change we want to see in the world. We must do our own work, personally and as a church community together first. We have to walk our talk. So solitude is the very first step in becoming grounded in grace and not grounded in the culture, grounded in hope and not grounded in fear and despair. And as a wise elder once very succinctly put it, it is that important, it is that simple, and it is that difficult. Amen.